Hey gang, we are on the west side of Chicago. I guess you call it Des Plaines Forest Park. Not far from Forest Home Cemetery right over there. And by the way, first off, I want to thank Jackie, who I met at Triggs, Woodruff, Minocqua. All right, she's liquor store cashier. But she had told me the story before here, a very sad accident that happened to a boy named Brandon Schwartz. He was only 4 years old. And yeah, a tombstone toppled on top of him. I found the grave of his grandmother. They were here coming to visit his grandmother. He was with his parents, Marvin and Rose. It was Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day, May 11th, 1986. Now, his father was 56 years old, Marvin Schwartz. He was a Holocaust survivor, and the three of them were here. Their mom, Bella Kestenbaum, had passed 6 years before. And, you know, Mother's Day, they were here. It was Rose's mother. And they were walking right where I am walking in this row. I believe that they came, the grave is almost in the center of the section. And I'm gonna surmise they came from the west side. I'm sorry, the south side, straight ahead. I'm coming from the opposite direction. There's a reason I'm doing that, because I want to show you something. I think I found the actual gravestone that fell. And Bella is buried right up here now. Let's just start with Bella's grave. Now, this cemetery, I'm going to tell you, has a notoriety. And the notoriety is that they have huge, tall tombstones, monuments you see here, and many of them are tipping over. And it's actually a very dangerous situation here. You really have to watch where you're walking, because this is the result. Now, that stone right there weighs about 1,000 pounds. How do I know that? Because I measured the stone that fell on the little boy. It weighed 500 pounds and was about half of that. Now, there you go. That is ready to go. If you're walking to the right there, and it's at the wrong moment, your time has come. Fate, right? There are other parts of the cemetery that are much, much worse. I'm not going to show it. I don't want to come down too hard on this cemetery. We'll talk a little bit about it, but here is the grave of Bella, who was 70 years old when she passed away, August 3rd, 1980. So this is the stone that they were visiting. Rest in peace, Bella Kestenbaum. Now, they're presumably walking down one of these two rows, and I think it was this row, and again, I'm going to explain why when we get there. But it just, the little guy was walking along. His parents were walking in front of him, presumably right here, and they heard, he was behind them, and they heard a thud, you know, boom, you can imagine. And they turned around, and to their horror, Brandon is pinned under a stone, and the stone is kind of like this size. You know, it's not that big of a stone, and it's on a base just like this, and it was tipping over, and it just picked that moment to fall on him, and he was crushed. Now, his dad, with the adrenaline, because it said later, the police took 4 police officers to pick up this stone, but his dad, Marvin, like moved it right off him. Can you imagine? I think any of us would have superhuman strength, right? So Mom was hysterical. Obviously a bad scene. The police came. Now the stone measured 38 inches tall. It was 20 inches wide and 9 inches thick. Most of these stones are 8 inches. Well, I shouldn't say many of them, but as I walk this entire area, all this, well, I didn't go end to end of the section like over there, but I kind of 4 or 5 rows on each side. I measured each stone, like those two. Now the news article had the exact dimensions. Deb found that, and thank you, Deb, for helping. And this is the only stone that matches, and it just happens to be right on this row. So I will take out the tape and show you. So like I said, 9 inches, right? Okay. Nominally 9 inches. It was 38 inches high. Let's see if I can do this. So again, it was at the base here, right there, and there you go. Just under 38, but we're talking nominal here. And they said it was 20 inches wide. Oops. All right. There you go. So, now this stone, if this is the stone, or whichever stone it was, I'm not saying this is the stone. It's a good chance it is. It's maybe a 60-40, but I don't know. But the bottom line is, that particular stone, whichever one it was, fell before this accident and injured someone else, if I'm reading the article or the research right. Or there was a stone here that injured someone else. But in any respect, these stones are time bombs just waiting to happen. Now, when you see this, it says trust fund. That really just means that they're going to trim and really not going to do much. But when it's endowed, let's see if we find something. That means that the family has prepaid, and they're, repairs, everything else. See, now interesting, that one says danger, keep away. And this one isn't even tipping. And by the way, if you go to the west side of the cemetery, it's like broken up in all these huge sections. There are piles, it looks like Jenga blocks on the ground, the kids, piled all over the place. Now here is one right here, next to these two. There's a notice on these two stones. Again, I'm just wondering if that's the stone, but this is endowed care, so lifetime, they're going to fix it. But here's a good example. Look at it. Just now, Frank Troost, if he's watching, says that we always need to pin these, with rods. And none of these, I can tell you, I haven't seen one. They are all, and maybe it's 1930s, that's the way they did it, just glued it. But what happens is ice gets under here, even with this epoxy or caulk, and this thing walks. So it's tipping and it's walking. And it's a time bomb. It's a time bomb waiting to happen. Just like this one. So ironically, this man, his wife, her stone has fallen over just like what we're talking about. And thank God no one was walking here. Okay, that one over there. These ones over here. You can look all over the place, and you are going to find these tipping stones, these little time bombs that are just waiting to happen. Now, endowed care, trust care, this care, that care. I don't want you people to come down on Waldheim, okay? This is really tough. I mean, there are thousands of stones here. They don't have the money. The families are supposed to keep up with this stuff. So, but the one thing, if anybody that works at Waldheim, they're great people. Don't blame them, please. They don't have the budget. It lays on the families, and unless it says perpetual care, right? But let's not get too hard on them. But if any of you are watching that work here at Waldheim, I will give you a recommendation, okay? And you guys tell me if it's a bad recommendation or a good recommendation, but it may seem like vandalism, but I think that it's better that you don't push them down, but you get some equipment out here. I don't want to walk over that open. You know, and here's a good example right here. Come out here. You know, this is waiting to happen. You can even see the failure of that caulking, and you know there's water getting in there. And this thing has already walked. Okay, see that? I want you to take a close look. On the right is about 3.5 inches, and on the left is 2 inches. This thing has already walked to the left, so it's loose and free. And next spring, this is going to tip a little more. And in 5 years, this is going to be ready to go. And there's a lot of people. I see a lot of rocks, a lot of flowers. Someone's going to get hurt or killed. And if you get hit by this one, this is a 1,000-pounder. That one I showed you there was 500. It took 4 guys to move. You are a big guy like me, I'm dead. Okay? So what I would do, Waldheim, and any other cemeteries in the country or the world that have the same problem, is I would get equipment and I would just lay this down. Lay it down. Lay it down over the deceased. Because it's going to fall. This one's going to fall on Harry Schwartz over there, who's down in the ground right here. So take Isidore Aminsky. He died in 1937, and put that stone right over him, right here. Okay? That's what I recommend, guys. So, a lot of danger here. In fact, this is nothing compared to this is really, well, this is nothing compared to the western parts of the cemetery. It's, I would say 30% of the stones are. Look at, here's another one. Wow, this is leaning way over, and that's even bigger. That's 1,500 pounds, maybe 2,000. Yeah, lay those things down, guys. All right, we are going to go to Arlington Heights, and I'm going to see if we can find Marvin and Brandon. I don't know if Rose, but there's find a graves that say they're at Shalom in Arlington Heights, so hopefully we can find his grave. So let's head up there. All right, we are at the Shalom Cemetery, and we're in Arlington Heights, northwest of the city, pretty far, suburb. Beautiful cemetery. It's more like a memorial park. And I have found their graves tucked in behind these bushes here. So Brandon was pronounced dead at Loyola Medical University Medical Center, and it was quoted in the newspaper, and a neighbor said Mrs. Schwartz was completely hysterical. Sylvia Benish, the neighbor, she said he was an adorable child. This is such a shock. It is just unbelievable. He was so handsome and so smart. The parents are very nice and loving people. So as I mentioned, it happened recently there. And one of the biggest law firms, injury attorneys here in Chicago is Corboy and Demetrio. And they took up the case. They would get a settlement for the family of $1.5 million. And several entities were named as defendants in the wrongful death lawsuit. The lawsuit had, of course, alleged that the defendants were negligent maintaining the grounds and tombstones and by failing to properly inspect the tombstones. The previous toppling had occurred, they mentioned that. Same monument that caused Brandon's death, I understand. So, as you saw at the cemetery, it's a beautiful sculpture here. We're like in the very center of the cemetery. So let's walk over to the graves, which are right here in this little shady spot. So they are actually interred here in front of the stones. So we'll start here. This is someone else. Now here's Brandon. Let's come to Brandon last. Here's a Jacqueline. Now that mother's name was Rose, I thought. I don't think this is her. Born 1934. Dad Marvin was born 1929, so a little confusing there. Different first name. Is this Rose? Is this a second wife? Don't know. But in any respect, I will leave a flower. Interesting epitaph on the stone. You'll live in our hearts forever, our unsinkable Molly Brown. Of course, that's a reference from the Titanic. Famous Molly Brown, who survived the Titanic. Here's Marvin. So this is his father. 1929, Marvin passed July 19th, 1997. So just over 10 years after little Brandon passed, they are reunited. And this is Brandon's grave here. Brandon Scott Schwartz, December 28th, 1981 to May 11th, 1986. So sad. Beloved brother, beloved son and brother. Ah, it's terrible. Well, rest in peace to the Schwartz family, Brandon, Marvin, Rose, and all the Schwartzes that have passed on. And I hope there's no more accidents at Waldheim. It's sure to happen again somewhere in the world. It's so sad. Rest in peace, guys. Rest in peace.